All right, so I said it going into the last break that monkeypox seems to be being spread mostly amongst the community of men who have sex with men. I realize this is a mostly G-rated program, but we've seen no calls for behavioral restrictions the way we did with the COVID lockdowns. Now, I understand COVID is airborne, but there's still a behavior here. As a matter of fact, whether it's HIV or AIDS or any other STD, we haven't passed any laws or heard of any executive orders that restricts certain behaviors. As a matter of fact, in California, they actually decriminalized knowingly spreading HIV and AIDS. My next guest is the senior fellow at the Cato Institute and works for the Department of Health Policy Studies, Dr. Jeffrey Singer. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so should we be freaked out about monkeypox? I mean, so far it seems to be spread to a limited group of people, but obviously that could spread to a wider group of people.
Well, first, we shouldn't be freaked out. Everybody should take a deep breath because first of all, monkeypox has been around since the 50s. It's not a new thing. It's not like COVID, which was a completely brand new virus. But what's unusual is it usually doesn't get out of Africa very much. But nowadays, with world travel and trade, things are going to be, all these things are going to become global. So normally monkeypox is, and this particular clade of monkeypox virus is not lethal, so nobody's going to die. I mean, there has not been one death in the world so far. About 18,000 cases, and about 3,800 in the United States. Nobody's died. Usually, after about 2 to 4 weeks, it goes away on its own. You start off with flu-like symptoms and a lot of swollen glands in the neck, and then oftentimes you don't see any rash at all, and then as that subsides, a rash comes on, and they're pox-like lesions, and they usually actually are all over the body. This particular version of it, for some reason, seems to primarily be affecting parts of the body, like around the genitals and around the perianal area, and that's why we're seeing it, at least initially, that it's mainly affecting men who have sex with men, but it doesn't necessarily have to stay that way, and it's likely not going to, because the way you catch it, unlike COVID, you catch it usually by coming in contact with the fluid that comes out of the pox lesions, or sometimes the virus is in your bodily fluids, like your saliva. So only really close, intimate contact, or shaking hands of a person who's got lesions on their hands, or wiping your face with a towel that person just wiped their body with, or sleeping on bed sheets that person.
All right, hold on a second here.
That's the way you catch it.
You just expressed where it's normally being found. I won't repeat the body parts. So are we seeing lots of cases where it's in the palm of the hand or
not
anywhere?
And that's normally it's much more widely distributed, and there's no reason why, based on past experience, to think that it's not going to eventually become more widely distributed, because we don't usually see it confined this way. And eventually it's going to be spread to everybody, because, like I say, all you have to do is kind of wipe yourself with a towel, unknowingly wiping an area that has your rash, and if somebody else would use that towel, that's how they'll get it. So everybody should take it seriously, but it's a controllable problem. Number one, you're not likely to die from it. Like I said, it'll go away on its own after you have this very uncomfortable and unsightly rash. And number two, there are steps you could take to avoid spreading and catching it, such as, if you think you have a lesion, then avoid intimate contact with anyone for at least 2 to 4 weeks before this thing goes away, before the lesions heal. So there are simple things you could do to prevent its spread. Also, this is a DNA virus, not an RNA virus. They're not as prone to mutate. So unlike influenza or COVID, you're not going to get all these various variants and strains that constantly are, evading our immune system. And we have therapeutics that work against it, and we have 2 vaccines that work against it. And it's in a family of viruses that smallpox belongs to. It's called the orthopox. So anybody who's of my generation who got the smallpox vaccination way back when, that vaccine will probably work against this. So they're probably immune to it. So there's no cause for alarm. It's just cause for, normal common sense precautions.
Yeah. like not doing the things that spread. We don't hear any messaging like that. That's what I find kind of obnoxious about this. I mean, we saw the head of the CDC. We saw that there was an uptick in cases during Pride Month, and nobody said, hey, maybe a little abstinence. I know this is Salem News. We're a bunch of, stick in the mud, conservative, social conservative fuddy-duddies. But maybe there's some things that people should refrain from. We locked the whole country down over, yes, an airborne virus. We said the behavior pattern is you breathing on other people or sneezing or coughing or initially touching surfaces, stay 6 feet away, wear a mask. Some of that stuff didn't work, but we imposed behavior restrictions. We don't even see advice being given. As a matter of fact, we're not talking about it at all.
Well, I think that's irresponsible to not talk about it, because if we know a particular segment of the population is, at least at this point in time, particularly vulnerable, then it's our responsibility in the public health field as physicians to tell people who are in who are in that gay community, men who have sex with men, be careful, because this seems to be spreading primarily in that community right now. So take precautions. Don't avoid intimate contact with people who think they may have been exposed to someone who has it, and you could stop this thing from spreading. So I think it's actually responsible to direct advice to the people who are most vulnerable.
Look, I don't know if you know how woke works. If we keep talking, the Pink Triangle Mafia is going to kick the door down and drag me out of here for even mentioning this. You're not allowed to say those things. It offends people. And that's the sad thing about science. If you even offend people, they don't want to hear any of your talk about, well, now we're back to my body, my choice. You keep your laws off my body, keep your government out of my bedroom. I know what you're saying. We're talking about safety here. We're talking about public health. But when public health and safety offends somebody, because it sounds like you're targeting them, you're not allowed to say that stuff in public anymore.
Well, this is, in my opinion, non-judgmental. This is just doing, performing your role.
I know you think that. I know you think that, but you're a doctor. This is what I do for a living. I'm dealing with woke every day. I'm up to my eyeballs in it. I know you're coming from an honest place.
Yeah, and the other thing, it's important to note that just like with the early days of the COVID pandemic, and I've written about this, I'm kind of concerned that we might end up repeating the same regulatory mistakes. The FDA was very slow to approve testing, so now we have testing out there, but because it's the tests are being made available to local public health agencies, and the CDC is recommending that a person test positive before they can get the therapeutic. There is a therapeutic that treats monkeypox. It's called TPOX. It's approved in Europe. Now in this country, just like back in the past with COVID, the FDA has not yet approved TPOX. But fortunately, the CDC found a workaround where they use this at what's called an expanded. It's a way of letting people use it under investigational new drug expanded access. So technically, unfortunately, to comply with that, doctors have to fill out all these forms, and the CDC is recommending that you don't use it unless you've gotten a positive test for monkeypox.